back to Slow Your Roll. I'm Cody.
And I'm Alex.
And today we are reviewing every change in the changelog for the 0.9.5 update of DC20. This one's going to be a minute, so let's just get right into this thing. Tons of awesome changes, starting with the quick updates from the previous version's character sheets to this one. So, Alex, take it away.
And since I've been making a whole bunch of characters lately, we got to look at what's going on with the character sheets. If you're using an old character sheet and you would like to update it with the new changes, change the following. You now have save mastery in all 4 attributes. The reason why it's worded that way is because saves are changing a little bit. So in a way, we're almost getting rid of mastery, right?
Right.
At least for specific attributes, the 4 attributes.
Yeah, it's a weird thing because now basically combat mastery is just going to be added to saving throws, period.
Yes.
The saving throw in general, it's going to be kind of like attacks, checks, and spell checks, how they add prime and combat mastery. Same deal. You just add combat mastery to your saves.
Yeah. But before we drone on along about, well, just one point, we have another 57 to get to. Health points.
Right, for real.
Health points are going to need to be recalculated. The HP formula is now class HP plus might plus ancestry HP, which, to be fair, if we're only having to add 3 things together instead of 5 when it looks like an actual math formula, that's cool. Less complexity, I'd love it.
Yeah, I've always thought that every class should just have a set HP, and then if you add stuff to it, that makes sense. So now that's exactly what they did, where it's just class hit points. Whatever class you are has a certain amount of hit points. Then you add your might and ancestry HP or whatever. I like that a lot.
Definitely. And the physical defense and mystical defense are now changed. Your physical defense is precision defense, and your mystical defense is now area defense. And the formulas are changed just a little bit. It's 8 plus combat mastery plus agility plus intelligence plus bonuses for your precision defense. Still a lot of math there, but as long as they do most of it for me, I'm still A-okay. Yeah. And in the same vein, same thing for mystical defense. Your area defense is now 8 plus combat mastery plus might plus charisma plus bonuses.
Yep, awesome stuff. That is a lot of math for sure, but this is cool because it makes every attribute worthwhile in your defenses. So, and I know Alan described it a couple times. It's a whole long thing, but basically, precision defense is when you are precisely attacked, something you can dodge or block. And area defense is if there's an area of damage that you really can't escape, that's just how much you can grit your teeth and bear it kind of thing. So I like that. After you sort out all the defenses, actually, before we move on from there, I do want to mention the whole precision defense. It says AD right here, I'm highlighting, but it's PD. Precision defense is PD and area defense is AD. That was just a typo, so that was a little bit confusing. But anyway, moving on from there.
I figured it was. That's kind of why I skipped it. I tried to fix it in my head when I was saying it, but other than that, I skipped it.
Yeah, easy enough fix. So rest points are now equal to your maximum hit points. So that's a pretty big buff in most cases for rest points.
Huge.
Yeah, which is still not... it's hard not to compare this to 5e because a lot of people are coming from 5e, including myself. So this is still very much on par with that. You could like recoup all of your hit points with the 2 short rests that you have, or really close. So this is super similar. So I think that's kind of cool. A little bit more forgiveness as far as healing on the fly and stuff. But moving on from there, your initiative check is now agility plus combat mastery. How do you feel about that, Alex?
Honestly, I think that makes sense. So your agility, in general, how quick you are to respond to something. It doesn't even have to be like your literal speed. Just how quick you are to respond to something plus what you're good at kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, I get that. It definitely does make sense. I think that the biggest reason they did this was actually to give a little bit more value to the agility attribute.
Okay.
If I had to guess. Not necessarily because it's a better option, but to literally make the agility attribute worth a little bit more.
Yeah.
Now it influences your initiative checks. I think that's probably why they did that. You do want to make sure you check your ancestry options to see if and how they were changed. There are a few ancestry things that did change, so that is worth checking out. Yep. And check your class features to see if they have changed. because there were a few that changed there as well.
As always, you should probably do that whenever an update hits. I like to essentially remake the character that I have in front of me just to make sure it's still right.
Yeah, I think that's a safe practice when you're updating.
And if you haven't already filled out character sheet, it takes like 5-10 minutes. I think that's everything that's changed with the character sheets. Let's get on to the nitty-gritty, the core rules changes. Now, when we're talking about attribute points, the rate at which PCs gain attribute points has been reduced to improve the balance of the game. All 4 attribute points have received some minor tweaks. Might, for instance, has a few. Might is added to your area defense. Heavy armor no longer has a might requirement, and might no longer gives rest points directly. Rest points are determined by your maximum HP. Any comments on the might attribute changes?
Not necessarily. I do like that. Even if it doesn't necessarily make that much sense, I personally like that heavy armor doesn't require might anymore. I mean, mainly just because, like, there's clerics out there that are wearing heavy armor, and clerics are little wimpy people. You know what I'm saying? But they're able to... Not actually. Not completely. Just kidding.
Oh, you cleric nerds.
I like the idea that a cleric could actually be like powerful or mighty because of their like given powers, not necessarily because of their might attribute. So I like that things like that can happen now, and you're not required to have high might to have heavy armor, especially because it's not necessarily a balancing thing anymore anyway.
Okay. See, for me, I've always felt like having a might requirement for heavy armor made sense. It doesn't have to be a gigantic might requirement, but it doesn't really feel right for somebody who's rocking a -2 in might to be able to carry around like 100-pound plate body.
And I do totally get that. I think the thing that makes it okay for me is that heavy armor isn't obviously better than light armor now, mechanically.
Yes.
It's just kind of different. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm okay with it not having a certain requirement now. If it was better outright, keep that requirement there 100%.
I did notice that, because for the most part, whenever I'm making a character, I would always dump agility and forego heavy armor, because you can make light armor essentially be just as good as the heavy armor with similar downsides. So with these changes, I'm definitely going to have to relook at dumping agility, though.
Yes, you might be able to get away with it now. But anyway, on to agility. Agility now is added to your precision defense. Again, adding a little bit more value to agility, and it contributes to your initiative checks. Whoa. Gain a D6 when you beat the encounter DC. I don't even know what that means.
Yeah. I feel like that's probably a D6 help die for your next roll when you beat the encounter DC. I feel like if I was going to guess what this means, it would mean that whoever beat the encounter DC would get a D6 help die for the next roll. That's what I would interpret that is, but...
That's awesome.
We'll see.
That is so cool. I hope that's true. I love that. Even if that isn't true, that's a great homebrew rule. Whoever crushes the DC the hardest gets D8 help, or any kind of help die, I guess, really. But yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, as long as it's only one person. Because if everyone beat the encounter DC and everyone got a D6 help die, ooh, man, that enemy's hurt.
Yeah. We'll have to look into that and see what that actually means. I didn't even notice. All right, cool.
And basically the exact same thing for charisma and intelligence happened. Charisma is added to your area defense, and intelligence is added to your precision defense.
The defenses we kind of already went over. It's all the same stuff here. Precision defense, area defense. There's the formulas. Moving on. Armor and shield rework. So the new system lets you increase your PD or AD. It's similar to the weapon rework. Armors and shields have properties that you can choose and customize. I think that's awesome. I think that's super cool. You can tune your character very specifically on how you want to be defensive in battle. I love that.
Yes. Any sense of a crafting system, bonus points for me.
Yes, 100%. Next, armor and shields are still split between light and heavy. The ways in which you gain training have not changed. So that's not too different. The main difference between light and heavy is that only heavy armors and shields can take on negative properties, allowing you to specialize further.
Oh, really?
That's really cool.
Okay. Only heavy armor and shields can take on... Man, literally the entire way I've made my characters has changed today.
Yeah, it's going to take some serious reworking. It's going to be funny. We've got like, I don't know, we've got like 10 new players in the West March that we're running and all that. And They're going to need so much help.
I'm going to need so much help. I'm going to be correcting myself on stuff that's not real.
Exactly. Next line reads, to prevent absurd defense stacking with the new system, you can only benefit from the PD and the AD bonus of one of the shields you are wielding. Because in DC20, you can indeed wield 2 shields, and you can make a whole build of that. It's kind of crazy.
That's what Billy Goose
basically
did.
just prevents that. Yes, that's right. Exactly. So this basically just prevents you getting the super benefits from having both shields.
Okay.
Probably good.
Min-max brain right here. There is a trait that says you could have like vestigial arms that give you 4 arms. Imagine slapping 2 little buckler shields, like arm, 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 and then you just get a +4 to your physical defense for every single arm, and you're using them like Captain America.
That's pretty awesome. That is pretty awesome. I'd like to see that done, Alex. Wink, wink. No, just kidding.
Note to self, make human centipede.
All right, maybe I don't want to see this done. Never mind. To still enable a dual shield build fantasy, you instead gain the following benefit when you're wielding multiple shields. You are immune to being flanked. So that is one of the things you definitely get, which is cool.
Nice. And a little bit of more like video game knowledge to interject there. I actually love that because in The Legend of Zelda, if you have your shield on your back and somebody hits your back, it deflects it.
That's true. I remember in like, what was it? In Super Smash Bros. Melee, and maybe more from there. I just remember it from Melee. If you crouch as Link, he puts up his shield, even though it's not the actual shield, and it will deflect minor projectiles.
Yes.
Amazing. Super cool. Has nothing to do with this. Whatever. Anyway.
With the defense change, DR has been reworked to be based on damage types instead of defenses. You have physical, elemental, and mystical DR instead. And DR, I mean damage reduction. And each reduces the amount of damage you take by that type by half. Minimum of 1. So instead of just damage reduction on your armor, it's physical damage reduction, elemental damage reduction, or mystical damage reduction. What do you think about that?
I think that's great. I can see why some people might not like that. Like, it's kind of fun to be able to see the numbers stack up as you're collecting damage reduction from things. But right out the gate, this is definitely going to be easier. So I'm all about it personally.
Yes.
If you have damage reduction, it just cuts the damage in half. Fine. That works.
Yep. And the line right after that ruins one of my characters that I made that was completely immune to fire. DR and resistance half don't stack with each other. Just a knife straight to the heart, man.
Yeah, I know it.
Taking out all my exploits. But for the next change for the armor and shield rework, and also the last one, if your armor or shield has PDR or EDR, it applies to both your defenses, which is actually a pretty cool buff.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Not much to say about it. That's just cool. It's good. Health points, as we did go over it before, the HP formula has been replaced by your class HP. Not entirely, but basically you get a set amount for class HP, and then you add some stuff from there. Might and other bonuses from your Ancestry.
Yep.
Rest points have been adjusted to match your maximum HP. It's a simpler system and allows you to heal in 1 HP increments if you would like to. Grit points. Grit points no longer applied to allies, but you can use as many grit points as you'd like for the sake of bearing damage or save resolve.
Perfect.
That one does burn me a little bit, not gonna lie.
Yep. I know what you mean. And I said perfect to the recording, not to the change, because I know I know that the grit points is in a way was helpful for the people who focused on help as like their character fantasy. So this does kind of take away from it. So we'll see how that works.
Yep. And I've already put out 2 videos like specifically about the Bard and how its help is awesome and everything. So yeah, that one burns me, but I get it. And the truth is I've literally never used a grit point anyway. I'm not going to lie.
It's true.
Not even once.
I forget about grit
I
every
just
time.
never did. Yes. And everyone does. That's a common thing, I guess. But so this is probably fine. Whatever.
Next up, we're going to be talking about stamina recovery. Stamina features can no longer be taken via talents and have been moved to be part of the class's mastery. Old, you recover 1 SP each time you activate your class's stamina feature. New, you can recover 1/2 your SP once per round if you activate your class's stamina feature. So the first line kind of chaps me a little bit. Stamina features can no longer be taken via talents and have been moved to be part of the class's mastery. Oh, such a just stab to the heart, because it's so cool when you get to have like the barbarian reason to refill your stamina and then the monk reason to refill your stamina when you get to level 2. And that was almost, when I was playing a martial, that was one of the reasons I would take like a multi-class, is so that way if I didn't refill my stamina in one way, I'd refill it in the other. So that's kind of a little bit of a nerf to the martials.
And so this is actually this is definitely a nerf in the sense that you can't take the other talents or other stamina features, but I could see that could end up broken pretty quick, I guess. So that does make some sense. I get it. But I think you'll be recovering stamina faster this way, technically. Because you recover half of your stamina points once per round. Now, whereas before, like anytime you did the stamina feature, you got 1 stamina point. Yep. And as many know how 5e had everything that was like halved rounded down, DC20 is the exact opposite, where anything that's halved is rounded up unless it says otherwise. So you can be willing to bet you're getting at least 1 stamina point still. So this is actually a little bit of a buff in that sense, which is nice.
Yeah, a little bit of a buff in the higher levels. But moving on to Death's Door. Death's Door threshold formula has been updated. It's now your prime plus your combat mastery. Plus, death saves results have been reworked. Made it so continuous damage persists on Death's Door. So it's going to be a little bit harder to get up.
That's funny. I didn't realize that. I guess honestly, I didn't realize that wasn't already a thing. But it's scary that it is now a thing. But it is nice to have your combat mastery added to your death threshold. At least there's a little bit more of a cushion there.
Yes.
Onto the notes for starting combat. Initiative DC has been removed and replaced with Encounter DC, along with a new chart. I haven't looked at the chart in general, but I imagine it's just kind of like this is what you should be gauging for easy, medium, and difficult encounter DCs, pretty much. Agility is added to initiative as well, but when you beat the encounter DC, you gain a D6 inspiration die.
Okay. My guess was close.
Yeah, and I imagine that's pretty much exactly the same deal. That's pretty exciting. I've always kind of thought, like, when you beat the encounter DC, like, it doesn't actually, if someone specifically does really well beating the encounter DC, their reward is that their team goes first, which is good, but it's also like, what if they did really good? And it's like, it doesn't feel that rewarding necessarily, but that's a fun way. It's like, if you beat it, you're getting a D6 inspiration die as well. That's pretty cool. That's rewarding.
Yeah, and I mean, that also brings up the fact that inspiration is now in DC20, or at the very least, that's the first time I've heard of it.
Yeah, absolutely. The next one is interesting. I just talked about how the last thing was felt unrewarding sometimes to beat the encounter DC. Next one is half of the party has to beat the encounter DC to gain the first initiative slot.
That's good.
So now it's not just one person has to beat the encounter DC. It's half of the party has to beat the encounter DC.
That makes sense. It kind of feels like most people should kind of have to beat the encounter DC to be able to get the edge up anyway. Because, like, what if your group really wasn't a cohesive unit? It's like, I draw my bow, I draw my sword, and then the next person is like, where's my shoe? You're going last.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. And it does make sense because, like, in DC20, my preferred way to run it is, like, the turns just alternate. So it's like literally your team goes first half of the time. So it's like you might take the first turn, but you're also, like, the third and fifth turn. So it's like you're still above the next enemy each time. So this is literally like half of your party beats the encounter DC. You get the first initiative slot, and it just remains that way. It does make sense. I like it. And then finally, I've been running it this way the whole time anyway. Players get to choose their order in initiative. I love that. I think it's great. It opens up a lot of freedom for tactical stuff if they want to get that figured out before the combat starts and stuff. It's beautiful.
And narratively, let's just say the barbarian's got like a 17, the wizard has a 15, and then like rogue has a 20. The rogue is gonna want to hide and be in the back and go like fourth anyway. The wizard is also gonna want the barbarian to go ahead so that way they can be in front. So like narratively, the wizard would be like, I'm charging up, and then the barbarian goes and the rogue ducks behind a barrel. So like just choosing how it goes anyway would kind of just be what works narratively.
Yes. Yeah, I 100% agree.
So Conditions. The big thing that we've got on this changelog here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 different changes for conditions. And the first is going to be change the format to bullets, as it's easier to parse the information. Some wording has been cleaned up as well as more precise, which simplification is always going to be welcomed. Such as grappled and prone have been moved out of conditions and are now listed in the creatures and combat chapter alongside flanking as positioning effects, which really just makes sense. Being grappled doesn't feel like a condition, it does feel like a position.
Yeah, and it does it has other conditions to it. So it's like you worry about the conditions on their own. I like
that. And removed nested conditions as it increases complexity, slows gameplay, creates balance issues, and makes rules harder to track. Simplicity is sick. That's what I love to hear.
Yep.
All X conditions are now written as such, and bleeding and burning have been added. And what they mean by that is like bleeding 1, bleeding 2, bleeding 3, right? Like X condition.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We have also added condition resistance and vulnerability, located after the condition list. That grants advantage on checks and saves against the specific condition. Condition resistance or disadvantage instead with condition vulnerability. That does make sense, but another layer of complexity here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the fact that you can be vulnerable to, let's say, bleeding, because like anemic people, or like vulnerable to burning. Well, that was kind of already in there, but other conditions that you can be vulnerable to anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I do like that. I think it's really opens up things for the characters more than monsters. Like if I'm making a monster, I don't really care about that. I'm probably not going to buy into that concept too much for anything specific. But if I'm making a character as a player, I could be pretty intentional about some of the things in my build to like purposely stack on these things that people might be vulnerable to as well. That'd be fun.
Yes. And I would love for some of these vulnerabilities to make it into the Ancestries too.
Ooh, yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if that's already done with this update. I didn't look.
Fingers crossed.
It looks like the condition stacking and overlapping section is updated as well, which makes sense given the last point. And they added a new condition called immobilized. I haven't looked into that personally, but I can imagine what it's about, and it makes sense.
Right. Probably moving pretty quick.
Yeah, exactly. Added a new condition called tethered as well. Sounds cool. I'll have to look into it later.
I'm going to assume that tethering vines now makes you tethered.
Yeah, I imagine like web and nets might too, and all that stuff now too. So that'd be fun. I see Varan quickly imposing the tethered condition before long. Anyway, they separated the heavily conditions, heavily dazed, heavily impaired, into new conditions entirely. And they are now called disoriented and weakened.
I mean, I'm fine with that.
That's fine. Yeah, it's kind of whatever. It makes sense. Sure.
I feel like heavily dazed and heavily impaired kind of bought into the simplicity thing, but disoriented and weakened can make their own thing.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, heavily dazed and heavily impaired should have been like bleeding 1, bleeding 2, bleeding 3, dazed 1, dazed 2, dazed 3. If it was going to be dazed and heavily dazed, then it probably is a good idea that they changed it from that to disoriented and weakened. If it doesn't fit the formula of the like bleeding 1, 2, and 3.
Right. I get that. Doomed no longer affects death's door threshold, which is interesting. What is it? Okay, what is it now? Instead, it now reduces your maximum HP and the amount you are healed by a value of X, X being the number of doomed stacks.
Nice.
Interesting.
I love that.
That is kind of nice. It was frightening. That is a frightening thing. If you have doomed 3 or 4 or whatever, then it's like,
you just die.
You die at 0 hit points. Yeah, like that's terrifying. That's so scary.
Yeah, I just feel like you shouldn't mess with death's door, more or less, but taking down your maximum HP that you can be healed is amazing. And I honestly wanted to make a character that kind of focused around that as a fighting style. I wanted to call it like the soul fighter or whatever. So like they would do soul attacks and do soul damage, and you could never like heal from that damage.
Yeah, Emotional damage.
Yes.
Basically. Now you can no longer use minor actions while incapacitated.
Okay.
Interesting. Rattled renamed to frightened, and frightened renamed to terrified. I do like that.
Okay.
Because terrified is scary. I like that.
Yep. And the next one's called Puma Pants.
Yeah, exactly. Poop in pants. Okay. And then surprised now reduces your current and maximum AP by 2. I think that's a cool mechanic touch there. Mechanical fix for a condition. I think that's kind of cool.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense to me.
Cool.
With the next thing on the list being save masteries. We've already covered this at the beginning, but players get masteries in all saves at level 1. Talent mastery and your paths. Talent mastery has been renamed to path. Your character's path is no longer linked, no longer forcing you to take a martial path if you took a martial feature. You can now take a martial path even if you take a spellcasting feature. Additionally, spellcasting classes with at least 2 levels in the martial path automatically gain spellcaster stamina. Once per round, you can regain up to half your maximum SP when you use a spell enhancement. Okay, multi-classing was just fixed for me right there. Okay, good.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome.
Honestly, multi-classing was just buffed right there. I'm not going to lie.
Oh man, I love that so much. Alex, I've advocated for like a stamina-like feature for spellcasters one way or another.
Yeah.
This is a way to do it. This is a way to do it. I wonder even if you can like, oh man, I wonder if you can just start a build like this, kind of like homebrew a build to just start this way. You know what I mean?
Literally Varan, when he hits level 4, is going to be utilizing this feature right here. Because... shoot, I don't want to give like spoilers for what I might be thinking for anyone who wants to watch the West.
True.
All right, never mind. Shut up.
That's true. That's true. We'll leave that little taste in there. We'll leave it as is. But yeah, I love that so much. That's so cool.
Yeah, that is actually a pretty big boost. Because if you tried to multi-class, you would need to be able to take 2 of the same like abilities in the same class to be able to get a like flavor feature. Which, in all honesty, the flavor features were just that, flavors. But now you take 2 multi-classes just in the same path of Martial, which applies to 6 or 7 classes, or Spellcaster, which applies to 6 or 7 classes, which is so many more options, dude. So many more.
Yeah.
You weren't like locked down to a class anymore.
Dang, I love that so much. That's awesome. This is like super out of the blue, but TNT Tori, another DC20 YouTuber, recently put out a video where she was basically just kind of like, you know, what if we don't need subclasses? Because they're kind of restricting technically. And some of the comments, honestly, she made good points and I got it. And a lot of the comments, it's kind of just a two-sided thing. A lot of the comments were like, yeah, but players really just like a lot of players need and want a specific path of structure to help build out their character. Which I'd also get 100% because it's like kind of intimidating if you just have complete free reign to like pick and choose whatever you want. But yeah, this is just really cool to see kind of what she was saying. Like you've just got options like crazy.
Yeah.
And it's so cool. I love that.
I think there could be a cool middle ground if you got your 3 subclasses, right? And then those 3 subclasses would end up giving you 3 features, and those features are listed 1, 2, and 3. But like at the very bottom, the section says you can pick a subclass feature 1, 2, and 3 of all 3.
Right.
So you could maybe mix and match, but like some of them that overlap, like feature 1 could all kind of do the same thing or be like kind of the flavor that you go in. So I feel like there could be a middle ground to be able to pick a little bit of everything.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. This is kind of starting to walk that path already, and it's cool. That's a cool thing to see. I like that. Oh yeah, true. All right. Damage reduction. DR grants damage resistance half against attacks that aren't heavy or critical hits or higher. This is kind of mentioned earlier too, but a new damage resistance was added called elemental damage reduction. Oh yeah, excuse me. I'm saying resistance. DR is damage reduction. Damage resistance is damage resistance. So damage reduction always prevents a minimum of 1 damage of its type, provided it's not bypassed completely.
Yes. And I like that heavy and critical can bypass it.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. That's Alan keeps saying it in all of his streams and stuff too when people bring it up, but it's just like you feel much more comfortable and confident just giving it to a player character for whatever given reason at any moment without feeling like it's going to break the game, because it can be bypassed by hits that are more than normal hits. And I agree with that.
Yes.
Damage types. Sonic damage is now categorized as an elemental damage type.
See, that never made sense
fine.
to me because it's obviously a hedgehog damage type.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. No, I've always thought, and this is kind of silly, it's like taking the magic out of it, I guess you could say, but I've always thought that sonic damage shouldn't even exist. It should just be force damage.
Okay. So, sonic damage to me is just like somebody playing a flute badly.
Okay, so that makes sense, and I get it. So, like, that's the other argument, right? So, my next thought is, if it's like so, like, it's something that's like so in like toxic to your brain, then it should just be psychic damage anyway. If it's not force damage or psychic damage, what is it? Sonic damage isn't a thing. But, you know, whatever, it is what it is. I'll leave it at that.
Right.
That's my rant.
We all know sonic damage doesn't matter until you get fast enough to make a sonic boom, and nobody's an F-57
Yeah.
or whatever they're called.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're going to be heading into skills, trades, and languages. The knowledge subsection of intelligence is now categorized as a type of trade. Engineering has been added to the list of knowledge traits. And I'm really going to have to take a look at that because I totally just said it wrong. It's knowledge trades, not traits. Man.
Whatever, it's all the
Right. I'm really going to have to take a look at that because I love the fact that we just added one more into that section of the knowledge section, because it was always weird that there was 5. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whenever you had extra intelligence points, you couldn't just pick 2 here, and then now you have 1 left over. You could do all of them, or just if you wanted to pick all the knowledge skills, you'd have like half a trade point, which was weird. So I like that they added at least 1 more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is cool. I think it's weird that the knowledge subsection was added as a type, or categorized as a type of trade. But
especially since we
I
already
also
have
think
trades.
it was yeah, exactly. But I also think it was just weird before anyway, that it was like the only one that was like divided up. It made sense and it worked, but it was weird. So I'm open to whatever change is going on there, and I'll check it out, I guess.
True. And does that mean that the knowledge section still uses the extra skill points, or do we have to use them as trade points when we're picking our trades?
I think that's in the next thing here. I read ahead a second.
Okay, so for mastery and training, 1 skill point can be converted to 2 trade points. Maintaining knowledge's 2 for 1 value, you can now increase your mastery limit in 1 skill or trade by spending 1 skill or trade point respectively. A skill or trade can still only benefit from 1 increase to its mastery limit at a time. And that's really cool.
That is really cool.
Because there's a lot of reasons why you would be like really good at a specific skill. Let's say intimidation, and like you're an orc or you're a giant born, but you don't have the specific ability to be extra good at intimidation. Now you can, just because it's built into character creation. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a welcome change. I like it. Concentration has been renamed to sustain action. You must spend 1 action point at the start of each of your turns to sustain an effect until the start of your next turn. You can't sustain an effect while dazed. I think this is really cool.
Okay. Yeah, I think it makes sense.
I think this is really cool. Yeah, because now you can do more with this now. Because before is like if you have a spell that just requires concentration and it's whatever. Now it's like it actually requires something of you. Like it requires something of your character mechanically to keep doing this thing, which means it can be held more consistently in most cases, probably, which is really cool.
I think maybe a little bit less consistently now. Because, like,
well, yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah.
Since you have to clarify it every single round. But that's probably a safer way to play it, because I know that people love to forget about concentration.
Yeah, no, there is that for sure. That makes
So
sense.
I feel like this is a good way to make sure that people don't forget about it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But
that's a good point.
In the same vein, though, that does make any concentration spell now take more resources to cast and sustain, I guess.
Yep.
So that's something to keep in mind when you pick a concentration spell or a sustained action spell.
Right. Yeah. A sustained action spell. Yeah. it also means that it's like it gives room for sustained spells or actions to do more now. So like they might be able to do more damage on average now, or have a better, like more impressive effect now, because they literally cost more resources technically to sustain them.
That would be nice.
So that'll be interesting. And yeah, that'll be interesting in balancing those sustained actions.
But moving on from concentration, we're talking about moving and grappling. Creatures of different sizes no longer have bonuses or penalties when attempting to grapple, push, move, or knock other creatures prone by magical means. Which kind of makes sense. By magical means is the thing that totally saves it for me.
Yes.
Because, I mean, a halfling's not going to push over a giant. But if the halfling had force push, then they could probably get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does make sense. It probably also helps to keep certain spells, especially balanced by, it doesn't matter what size they are, it can still be done this way kind of thing. So it's probably a balancing thing in that sense too. And I definitely like it. I think that it'd feel awesome to do some magical pushing over of a giant one way or another for sure.
Yes. And now we're going to be talking about unheard. While unheard, you have advantage on attacks against creatures you are flanking that can't hear you. So the cone of silence might get a little bit extra utility here.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things I remember Alan talking about in his live stream was this is kind of also to help prevent the weird narrative disconnect of rogues hiding in plain sight. You know what I mean? So like now they can attempt to hide just by not being in the fray directly, kind of thing, which is cool.
Yes.
Now you don't have to be like, how are you hiding? What are you going to hide behind a rock real quick? Well, you have to spend action points to move there first so they can't see you, and then hide and everything else. So it's like this is a narrative way to explain rogues getting sneak attack-ish type feelings on stuff too.
Yeah, and I get the feeling that a lot of people don't understand, like, heat of a battle. If you're not directly looking at something, it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. So, like, if you did just stand behind the dude, you probably would be hiding, or at the very least considered unheard. So I do like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're like in a fight with someone, all of your focus is prioritized, and it really could be that the lowest priority in the fight is the person standing behind you, just because they managed to not be making a sound right now. You know, it's like, it's perfect. It does make sense. I like it.
Yeah. But if you're ever being jumped, the person behind you is high priority. I'm letting you know.
True.
But moving on into maneuvers, we've only got one change, and the trip maneuver has been changed to 1 AP, which is all the more reason to take it now.
Absolutely. I think that's great.
Next up, we're going to be talking about weapons. Natural weapons. Natural weapons are now a defined system in the game. Natural weapons count as weapons, and natural weapons are considered wielded by the body part they are on unless it is occupied with something else. So I'm definitely going to have to take a look at that, because a lot of my characters, if they're Beastborn, use natural weapons, and I'd like to see what changes really were made.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. There's been several times when I've been making a character and wanted it to have a natural weapon, and I was just like, I guess I'll just use a short sword and say it's like reflavored as claws.
Yes.
But still not use that hand when I'm attacking to not be OP, all that stuff. So I wonder if this kind of bridges that gap a little bit too.
I think it'll help a lot, because there's natural weapons for your ancestry, there's natural weapons for your familiar, there's natural weapons for wild form, there's natural weapons for, I'm sure, one other thing that I'm not thinking of. But if there's like a literal chart that you can just be like, hey, this is how this works, that's going to help.
Yeah. I imagine that's kind of what this is doing. So we'll definitely check that out. Okay. But probably related to the natural weapons when we do check it out, dual wielding. Dual wielding only works when wielding a weapon in each hand. Natural weapons count as weapons, so they can allow unarmed dual wielding. The second attack from dual wielding can be delayed as long as you remain dual wielding. That's kind of nice.
That is actually really nice. You got a 1-2 swipe, but the 1-2 swipe happens at the end of your turn, just so you know that's like what you wanted to do.
Yeah, like you attack once to start, move twice, and attack someone else farther away or something.
Ooh, I can just think of the karate movies like from the 80s where you have like one atomic smack and then the backhand coming across to smack somebody else.
Yes, absolutely. Opportunity attack, no longer triggered by standing up from prone, but does trigger when a creature draws a weapon. I think that's pretty interesting.
Definitely. And people are really going to have to clarify when that happens. Switching between weapons and things.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Honestly, that's probably one of those things that's going to just kind of go over our heads often running the game or playing in the game. But it's a cool idea. It makes sense. Like someone wants to swap from their short sword to a great sword with 2 hands or whatever. It's like, okay, but if you do that, it's going to give the enemy there in front of you opportunity attack. Definitely not going to remember that, but it does make sense. I like it.
True.
I'm okay to forget that on accident occasionally too, whatever.
Yeah. I don't have too big of feelings about it either way.
Yeah, same. Kind of whatever. Weapon properties. The concealable property did have some changes. Drawing the weapon doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. So that is one. Okay, that's interesting. You have a concealed weapon. That actually makes a lot of sense. That's just kind of a little buff to concealed weapons specifically, which is nice. I like that.
Definitely. Now we just need to introduce Ezio's dagger.
Yes. Oh my gosh. For sure. There were talent changes, but not too many here. So the class talents now have their own section and definition. All Paragon talents have been moved to the class talents section. That is really cool because I think that means you'll be able to pick things up easily from other classes, even more customizably now. I could be wrong, but if that is the case, that's awesome.
If it's what we were talking about earlier in the changelog, then I think that's going to be really cool.
Yeah, man, I love that. It's going to be insanely customizable. That is so cool. I love that.
Next up, we're going to be talking about class changes, and we've changed a lot of classes. The Barbarian, Champion, Druid, Hunter, Monk, and Rogue, along with Sorcerer and Warlock, have all been changed. Not to mention, a couple of changes have happened to all of the classes. Like, class HP has been updated. No bonus HP. Bard, Druid, Cleric, Sorcerer, or Wizard. Bonus HP every odd level for Rogues, Spellblades, and Warlocks, and bonus HP every level for Commander, Barbarian, Champion, Hunter, and Monk. So, that's just kind of been a change to the class's HP, both when you start and as you level up, and that's more or less the changes that have happened across the board. But now when we're heading into the Barbarian, Rage no longer grants advantage on might checks. Rage lowers your precision defense, PD, in place of your physical defense. And your Berserker defense is no longer a formula. It adds a +2 bonus to your area defense while not wearing armor.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, numbers changed. I don't really feel like it's too different.
Yeah, I agree. I like that it narratively makes sense. I guess that's about it for me. I like that. It's
Rage no longer grants advantage on might checks. I don't know.
I know, that's a big one. That's a big one.
Like, the lady that picks up a car because the baby's under it would like to have a word with you.
Yeah, she'd like to have a rage with you. For the champion, a few changes made there as well. The advantage benefits of combat readiness have been specified to last until the end of combat. Not too big of a change there, but it is nice. It's good. And the Hero's Fighting Spirit feature has been renamed to Hero's Resolve and has a duration of until end of combat, which is fine.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like that stuff was just implied. It just wasn't said.
Yeah, 100%.
Moving on to the Druid, though. Wild form changed from physical defense or mystical defense to precision defense or area defense, which we probably could have seen coming. And wild form templates have been added. So that's interesting. I'm going to have to see what exactly the wild form template is, because I have at least 5.
I love that.
I have at least 5 I got to put in there.
I love that. One of the biggest reason I've been intimidated to make a druid. I haven't made a single druid, even on my own time. And that's the main reason why. It's just because, like, the wild form is one of the coolest things about the druid. And it's just like, it's so much. It's like making more characters after making your character.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about what the templates might bring.
If the templates streamline it a little bit, I'm all for it.
Yeah. But after that, the hunter was previously the ranger, now the hunter, since 0.9, I believe. Anyway, okay. Favored terrains, forest had its nature changed to medicine, and urban had its history changed to intimidation.
Because the hunter's favored terrain, you get to pick 2 terrains, and then you would get a specific effect from those terrains. So the forest doesn't have nature as it, anymore. It's just medicine. And then urban
I
doesn't
see.
have history, it just has intimidation, which kind of makes sense for that
very
one.
good. Yeah, absolutely. I actually like that. Makes sense.
The urban one.
And then hunters. Yes. Yep. And then hunter strike snare is changed from grappled to immobilized.
The reason for the change, I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably a little bit of a buff. I don't know for sure, but it seems like it is.
Yeah, I think so.
I get it. I think I understand already why they changed that whole situation or added immobilized or whatever. It's literally so that you could get what was the grappled condition out of other things now, like more easily. So like you can.
I'm probably gonna
specifically the snare. This is a perfect example of that,
dude. I'm probably gonna get immobilized for the druid when they do the nature's domain thing, like casting a spell and grappling at like 10 feet away.
Yep. Cool. I like that. Yeah, we'll have to look into
Totally. But next up, we're going to be talking about the monk. Monk's iron palms now counts your appendages as natural weapons. Patient defense is no longer a formula. It adds a +2 bonus to your precision defense while not wearing armor. Okay.
I still love the. Yeah, that's awesome. I was just laughing at it's still the AD. It's not. It's PD actually. But.
I didn't change it in my head this time. But that's not bad. Monk's iron palms now count your appendages as natural weapons. So, like I said earlier, you could have up to 4 appendages with certain ancestry traits. So, that could be pretty crazy.
Yeah, that'll be cool. And I think narratively, it's like the opposite. Now the monk and the barbarian are almost opposite in their natural armor situation, which is really cool. So like the monk is intentionally agile. They're getting bonuses to their precision defense, whereas the barbarian can just take a hit. So they're getting bonuses to their area defense. Like that's cool. That's good. I like that.
Yes. And I like to rationalize that by saying like, the barbarian is just this leather-skinned, baked-in-the-sun dude that you can't pierce through. But, like, the monk has almost never been hit. So, like, when he does get hit, that's a bruise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so the rogue stamina has been reworded to work with the condition changes, mechanically identical. So it's exactly the same, just worded to fix up the things that changes with conditions. Cheap shot has been reworded to work with condition changes as well. Long Death Rogue. So references to stacking bleed have been removed. And now, it says now applies to all stacks of bleed from the target, not just ones inflicted by the Long Death Rogue.
Oh.
So that's specific enough. I actually don't know it offhand. I imagine it's like one of the subclasses or something like that.
So I'm going to assume that specifically Long Death Rogue would say that you could stack Long Death Rogue bleed, but now it says other people can stack the bleeding condition upon this specific bleed that you have. So if I stabbed him, made him bleed with my specific thing, like I always pick the bleed maneuver whenever I make a martial. So if I did that and then a rogue also wanted to like double down on it, then that would be a good way for like us as a team to synergize.
That's cool. I love that. Yeah, that's great.
The sorcerer and warlock barely have any changes though. So, Paragon Talent, Font of Magic for the Sorcerer. Instead of a rest point formula, you can now spend 2 rest points in place of 1 MP on meta magic. And being able to spend rest points is cool.
Yeah, and now you've got a bunch more rest points. So, like, that's even more worth it now. That's super cool.
Now I really need to see an ancestry that gives you extra rest points. Like an animatronic ancestry or like the elven ancestry where it's like, I don't have to sleep because I'm an elf.
That's big brain stuff right there, bud. I like that a lot. That's really cool. It's also, you could just like be really intentional about getting as much HP as you could as a sorcerer. And then you've also got like more mana because of that, because of this ability, which is kind of cool.
Yes, that would be super cool. Like imagine you just forgo all your intelligence for the most part when it comes to a sorcerer, and you're the most beefed out dude imaginable. You got like 16 health. And they're like, why? And then you like take away 6 health with 1 shot.
Yeah, I cast punch, like for real though. You walk into the king's court and he's like, why are there 2 barbarians in your party? It's like, oh no, that's Anarius, the sorcerer.
Yeah, right. What does he cast? Fireball? No, he casts iron.
Casts iron. That's awesome. Warlock, packed armor no longer increases MD, and the MDR1 has been changed to MDR, which now halves the damage. Okay, so packed armor does not increase mystical defense because it's not a thing anymore. But you do have what's mystical damage reduction. Yes. So there's still mystical damage types. That's right. Okay. So mystical damage reduction is now a little bit better because damage reduction is a little bit better in general. So that's good.
Totally agree. And believe it or not, we made it through all the class changes.
We did. On to the last part here.
That's right. Ancestry changes. And the one I'm honestly most excited for. We've added 2 new ancestry options. -1 brittle. Your AD decreases by 1. They've added it to the elf and halfling. And they've also added quick reactions for 1 ancestry point. While you aren't wearing armor, you gain +1 PD for elf and beastborn. Okay, so that's actually pretty cool. Instead of having a thick skin being the only thing that can increase your physical defense, you being quick and agile is also something that can increase your physical defense.
Yes, and I'm going to guess that thick skin changes a little bit now too to do area defense stuff if it still exists instead of physical defense or precision defense now. So that'll be cool too.
It's actually in the point coming up in just a second too.
Oh, yep, it literally is.
Resilience has been removed and skill expertise has been made a default trait for humans.
Oh, okay.
I wish that skill and trade expertise could be made a default trait for every race, but that's probably just be me nitpicking. But if I'm gonna try to defend myself for that specific one, there's a lot of attribute and skill expertises or trade expertises that all of the races could have. So it just kind of feels like maybe we could add a couple of those. Like maybe those 3 things could be like something that anyone can pick from, but I don't know.
Yeah, just a common trait pool kind of deal.
Yeah,
I get that.
Because like skill expertise for an ogre means intimidation, but skill expertise for an elf means acrobatics.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess you could there's still the route of just like picking from any ancestry or whatever. Like, that is still technically a thing. But
yeah.
So I guess you could make it happen, but I do see your point for sure.
I do also try my best to not do the pick from anything ancestry, because when you do a normal ancestry, you can pick 5, but when you pick from anything, you can only pick 4. So
yeah, that's true.
I would never intentionally handicap myself because I think I can like work around in the normal rules to get the 5.
Yeah, that's fair for sure.
But getting back to some of the changes, thick-skinned, natural armor, and hard-shelled now all only work when wearing no armor. Not the change we predicted, but, you know.
Yeah, you're right. It makes sense.
Yeah, honestly. And if you have a hard shell, what are you wearing armor for anyway?
Yeah.
Strong-minded, however, no longer gives you mental defense and instead gives you psychic resistance 1. Cursed Mind no longer reduces mental defense and gives you psychic vulnerability 1. And Small-Legged has been changed to a -1 cost trait, which I love.
Yes. Just to double back here, as I was reading it, I was realizing it. For Strong-Minded and Cursed Mind, what they're saying, the 1 specifically, is how much that trait costs, not necessarily the resistance 1, because that's not a thing anymore. So.
Which one are you talking about?
I might be wrong. I might be wrong about that, actually.
No, yeah, you're fine. I just kind of lost you there. Were you the strong-minded and cursed mind?
For strong-minded and cursed mind, at the end it says 1. So it's like, instead gives you psychic resistance 1. I think it's actually saying that it costs 1 because there isn't a resistance or vulnerability 1. So I was just saying that that's the cost of the trait. And it's just weird that they put it there.
Oh, okay. That's the cost of the trait, not the amount of resistance you have.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. No longer gives you mental.
Which is fine. It was said fine, and then I did clarify it correctly, even though I thought I was wrong after that. So after editing, that'll be perfect.
No worries. But the small-legged trait, I also am happy to see that change as well.
Yeah.
I like to have more fleshed out negative traits than to have a bunch more positive traits added on. I feel like that would help people customize some stuff more.
Yeah, I agree. And it's fun little flaws to add to your character too in some ways. So
yes.
100%. It's good.
And harping on Ancestries one more time, I absolutely love that the smaller races like a halfling or an orc with the cursed mind already have a negative trait baked into it. Love that. Do more of that, please.
Yeah. Yep, that is a beautiful thing for sure. I like that too. And the last thing to cap off the changelog is spells. The following spells had their base damage increased by 1. I'll get into the reason after, and it's amazing. I love it so much. But anyway, Psy Bolt, Psychic Fear, Sacred Bolt, Guiding Bolt, and Death Bolt. As well, Fire Shield removed the investiture of fire. I don't know what that means.
See, I even use Fire Shield, and I don't even know what that means, so it must not have been important.
Sounds good. We'll skip our not knowing what that is and edit that out, probably. Anyway, but going back, now that the defense has changed, the reason why all these spells are increased by 1, you'll notice that those were all mystical damage spells. Every one of them. Psy Bolt was Psychic, Psychic Fear, Psychic, Sacred Bolt, Radiant, Guiding Bolt, Radiant, Death Bolt, Umbral. So now that PD and that is Precision Defense and Area Defense are like a much more balanced system than Mystical Defense and Physical Defense, where you don't have to try to like have unbalanced spell damages just because of the damage type anymore, which is amazing. It's going to be so much easier for crafting like homebrew spells and monster spells and everything else down the road, instead of being like, oh wait, because it's Mystical Defense, I have to change the damage type for this, even though it's works the same as Fireball or whatever.
And that would severely limit having a spell that says you can pick between cold, fire, or another type of damage, like lightning or something. Or let's just say you could do a sonic screech or just bash him in the head.
Yes, exactly. For example, the Cleric now, you can just like pick a damage type that's like any elemental damage, as well as Radiant or Umbral now. So it's like you can build out your Cleric however you want to, and you don't have to worry about the unbalancing of damages because the defenses are actually going to be way more balanced now. So that's amazing. I love that.
So you're saying a Cleric, aka the Avatar, is now possible?
Absolutely. I imagine so. Dang.
I think that was it.
Well, I just went on I feel like I just went on a power rant if you want to send it off.
Totally. So for me, I think these changes are pretty welcome. A lot of them, I'm going to have to see how they work on the table, but for most of them, I'm pretty excited for what's happened. As long as we can streamline some things when it comes to our defenses, and that's essentially what we've done here, I'm happy as a clam.
I was just going to say, and tons more customization options with like the talents moving around and all that stuff. Lots of customization improvements, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's true. Honestly, multi-classing got a huge buff today, and I love to see it. People who want to get like really specific and like min-maxy about stuff can. And that's a game in and of itself. And if you don't let them play that game, then you're already failing.
Yes. Preach. Dang. That was good.
But I'll get off my soapbox. How are you doing?
Yeah, no, that's great, man. I mean, yeah, if you guys have anything that specific thoughts or interests about this whole thing, feel free to leave that in the comments too. Or if you think we missed something and you want to bring it to our attention, please do. We're open to that. As long as you do it gently. We're sensitive folk. But yeah, I mean, that's really it. Let us know if there's anything else you guys want us to tackle as far as things in this realm, like going over change logs or whatever. It's kind of new, but it's fun. I like it. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let us know if there's any other stuff for that, I guess.
Absolutely. But hey, thanks so much for watching, you guys. And until next time, we'll see you all later.